This video shows how to solve simple equations involving two-step operations that are performed on both sides of the equal sign. So let's solve 3 plus 2n equals 11. So what we have here is 3 plus 2 lots of n equals 11. Now if you look at the equation here, the unknown n, the pronumeral n, the first operation we performed on n was to times it by 2, times 2. Then we added 3 to give us 11. When we unpack this equation, in order to get the pronumeral n by itself on the left-hand side, we want to undo all of the operations we have performed on it. So we work backwards through it. Now the last thing we did to the unknown was to add 3. So the first thing we want to get rid of is that plus 3. Now the inverse operation for plus 3 is minus 3. Now to keep an equation true, what we do to one side of the equation, we must do to the other side. Otherwise the equation is no longer true, it's no longer equal. So if we're going to subtract 3 on the left-hand side, we must subtract 3 on the right-hand side. So plus 3 minus 3 is 0, cancels out, and we're left with just 2 times n equals 11 minus 3 is 8. So we've undone the plus 3. The next thing we need to undo is the times 2, because we're working backwards through this equation to eliminate these operations so that we're left with just the letter n all by itself. The inverse operation to times 2 is divide 2. Think of it as the opposite. So the inverse to times 2 is divide 2. So if we divide the left-hand side by 2, in red here, then we must, to keep the equation equal, we must divide the right-hand side by 2 as well. So what you do to the left-hand side, you must do to the right-hand side. Otherwise it's no longer equal. Now 2 times n divided by 2, well the 2's cancel out. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so that cancels out, leaving us with just n. And then on the right-hand side, 8 divided by 2 leaves us with 4. So n equals 4 is the solution. So if you have 3 plus 2 times 4 is 8, 8 plus 3 is 11, that makes the equation true, n equals 4. Now if you have a look here, just coming back to the equation again, the first thing we did to the unknown n was to multiply it by 2, times 2. The next thing we did to it was plus 3, and that gave us 11. So writing those steps out, first thing we did was times 2, then plus 3. When we work backwards through this, we want to eliminate the last thing we did to the unknown. That was the plus 3. Then the next thing we need to eliminate is the times 2. So let's have a look at another example. 6p minus 8 equals 10. So what have we got? We've got 6 times p, or p times 6, and then subtract 8 will give us 10. So the first thing we did to the unknown was times 6 over here. The next thing we did was subtract 8 over here. So we're going to work backwards through that now by eliminating the last thing we did to the unknown, and that was the minus 8. Now the inverse of minus 8, the opposite if you like, is plus 8. To keep this equation true, if we add 8 on the left-hand side, we must also add 8 on the right-hand side. Now minus 8 plus 8 is 0, so that disappears, leaving us with 6 times p. 10 plus 8 is 18, so we have 6 times p equals 18. The next thing we want to get rid of is the times 6. Now the inverse to multiplying by 6 is dividing by 6. So we're going to divide the left-hand side by 6, and so we must also divide the right-hand side by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. 1 times p is just p. So we're left with p all by itself on the left, and 18 divided by 6 is 3, so p equals 3. In other words, 6 3's are 18, minus 8 equals 10. So the solution, the unknown variable p, is equal to 3. Next thing, we want to solve the equation 3m over 4 equals 6. So what we've done here with the m is we've times it by 3, then divided by 4 to give us 6. Now, multiplication and division, so far as order of operations are concerned, are the same. So we could have written over here, instead of times 3, then divide 4, we could have gone divide 4, then times 3. Those two operations can be performed in either order and to give the same result. But let's just go the usual way. M times 3 divided by 4 is generally how people read it. But it would be no different if we'd said m divide 4 times 3. So no different at all. Okay, so we're going to say the first thing we performed on m was timesing it by 3, and the next thing we did was divide by 4. So the first thing we want to get rid of is the last thing we did to the unknown, that's the divide 4. And the inverse operation for divide 4 is times 4. And again, this is an equation, so what you do to the left-hand side, you must also do to the right-hand side. Now here, divide 4 and times 4 cancel, and we're left with just 3m. Over here, 6 times 4 is 24. Next step, we want to get rid of this times 3. We just want the pronumeral m all by itself, down here, all by itself. To get rid of times 3, the inverse operation of times 3 is divide 3. So on the left-hand side, we're going to divide by 3. We're also going to divide the right-hand side by 3 in order to keep it equal. What you do to the left-hand side, you must also do to the right-hand side. 3m divided by 3, the 3's cancel out. 3 divided by 3 is just 1. 1 times m is just m. 24 divided by 3 is 8. So we're left with m equals 8. So if we go back here, 3 8s are 24. Divided by 4 is 6. So m equals 8 is the solution to this equation. Next one we want to do is 6 times, in brackets, x plus 3 equals 30. Now with this one, so far as order of operations are concerned, brackets come first. So the first thing we did to the unknown is add 3. Not times 6, we added 3. That is the first thing, because order of operations requires we do brackets first. So first operation was add 3. The next operation was times 6. And when we solve this equation, we're going to go back through this process and we're going to undo the last thing we did to the equation, which is times 6, and then we will undo the plus 3. Now the inverse operation of times 6 is divide 6. So we're going to divide both sides by 6. What you do to the left-hand side, you must do to the right-hand side to keep it equal. So over here, 6 divided by 6 is 1, and we're just left with x plus 3. It's not necessary to write x plus 3 in brackets down here, but just while you're learning it, we'll leave it there for the moment. 30 divided by 6 is 5, so x plus 3 equals 5. To get rid of the plus 3, the inverse operation is minus 3, and what you do to one side of the equation, you must do to the other. Otherwise the equation is no longer true, no longer equal. So plus 3 minus 3 cancel out, that is 0, and we're left with just x. X, all plus 0 if you like, 3 minus 3 is 0, x plus 0 is just x. 5 minus 3 is 2, so x equals 2. We go back here, 2 plus 3 is 5, times 6 is 30. Next equation, m minus 10 all over 2 is equal to 25. You can think of that as having a bracket, bracket m minus 10, right-hand bracket, all over 2 divided by 2 equals 25. So let's have a look there. Although the brackets are not written here, you can imagine they are, because it's all of this, all of it, divided by 2. So the first thing we did to the unknown m is subtract 10. It's inside those brackets which are not shown. M minus 10. So first thing we did was minus 10. Next thing we did was divided by 2. It's all equal to 25. So the first operation we're going to get rid of is the last thing we did to the unknown, which is times 2. Now the inverse of divide 2 is times 2. So the last thing we did to this expression here was divide 2. I think I said times 2 earlier. Divide 2. So the first thing we want to get rid of is the divide 2, and the inverse to divide 2 is times 2. So this divide 2 cancels with this times 2, and we're left with m minus 10. So divide 2 here, cancels out with times 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. They cancel out. We're left with m minus 10 on the left. And over here, 25 times 2 is 50. Alright, next thing we're going to get rid of is the minus 10. And the inverse operation, the minus 10 is plus 10. So m minus 10 plus 10, well, minus 10 plus 10 cancels out to 0, and we're left with just m. On the right-hand side, 50 plus 10 gives us 60. 50 plus 10 is 60. M equals 60. So we go back up here. 60 minus 10 is 50. Divided by 2 is 25. Alright, now in the description below this video is a link to a worksheet with some questions for you to practice. The link below that gives the solutions to that worksheet.